it seems like, the markets are a little bit more welcome to better data these days, right? Yep. Industrial profits yesterday.
Correct.
I mean, can we call it a recovery, or is it still quite early days?
I think this is probably still too early. We've seen some green shoots. For example, the August activity growth indicators, such as retail sales, as well as IP, they seem to have been better than originally expected. But would you call it a recovery? I think that's still too early. The industrial profit improvement on a single month basis was very, welcoming sign. But it is a lagging indicator. Whether it is sustainably going better, we need to watch for at least another 2-3 months before we can conclude. So I think that there are some positive signs, especially on the service side, which is, primarily related to people spending more time outside of their homes during the first summer vacation after reopening. But I would say that for commodity-related investment themes, it looks like the momentum still remains quite weak.
Yeah. Can we at least call a bottom on the economy, if not a recovery?
I think so. We think that the sequential growth probably has already been, bottoming out from the worst time in second quarter. Okay. So Q3 sequential growth is probably higher. Yeah. However, because of the base difference, right, then we will still see the year-on-year for third quarter being much lower than 5%.
Golden Week, I mean, what sort of expectations, what are you be looking out for the most?
I think that we're probably going to see the transportation data, tourism spending, as the most important. What do I expect everywhere in China? People mountain, people sea. So must be, because this is the time when people get 8 days of holidays, and why not, right? Yeah. This is time to get together with the family because of the Moon Festival, and at the same time probably get out a little bit.
PMIs are coming up, which I guess goes into the next month's set of numbers here. Is there any specific component of PMIs you're looking out for, given, I guess, this this nascent signs of a bottom?
Well, I think the production sub-index will be very important to watch. At the same time, I think export orders will be very important as well. The external demand side, we are not really keeping our hopes high. However, this is a sequential indicator. As long as it doesn't get much worse from here, the year-on-year terms export numbers will look better because, starting from September 2022, the base became lower and lower. So actually, we think that probably in many ways, we are starting to see more nascent signs of China bottoming out and things getting better.
I know you can't talk about Evergrande specifically, but I want to ask you, but if only to just see what worst-case scenarios are, not so much on Evergrande, but we're not talking about liquidation risks for this company, and that since we're talking worst case, let's say for conversation's sake, say Country Garden also, these big players go into some sort of liquidation. Do we feel that economically? In other words, can I treat that separately from perhaps a recovery in the economy?
Well, for POE developers who are currently still facing liquidity crunch, I would say that's potentially going to be still a major drag on the economy. So the way of dealing with their liquidity crunch and helping them out, I think will be very critical to watch. The reason is that if you just shut things down without addressing the following responsibilities, that's certainly going to hurt the economy the most, because that will crush the confidence, especially among those who have purchased the properties and couldn't see them completed and delivered. However, I would say that right now it doesn't look like that the government is going to go with such a drastic approach. In the past 2 years, they have done a lot with Baojiaolou, which means that they want to ensure the delivery of housing units first. So they involve local governments, they involve MOHURD, they involve the POE developers to make sure that these physical delivery are completed. But now this is probably the crunch time for them to address the long-term debt issues. Yeah. How to restructure it? Are they going to set up a SPV to do it, or are they going to allow some of the developers to have access to domestic bond issuance market so that they could potentially restructure going forward with the new debt issued? Right. I think that would be very important to watch, and we hope that more of such considerations for continuity and stability would be put into.
And you have a whole report about, can China avoid this Japanification? First of all, can it? And what forceful measures have to happen to do so?
Oh, Yvonne, everything has a probability greater than zero. That is what economists believe. So we think that China can, but they have to actually make the right decisions and take the policy actions in time to really avoid such a Japanification biases. At the moment, we think that taking prompt and also sustained policy reactions to address the growth downside is going to be the key to watch in the near term. We don't necessarily think China and Japan are so similar, but China is it's not necessarily immune to such potential pressure to look more like Japan going forward.